Welcome to the Beauty Business Strategies Podcast, where we give salon, spa, and med spa owners quick tips to make more money, inspire your team, and create world-class client experiences.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Beauty Business Strategies Podcast. Happy to be with you again. My name is Michael Yost. I'm the president here at Strategies, and the cooler part about it is I get to be your host again for the day. And so I'm really, really excited about the fact that got some great conversation going around leadership and just all kind of cool things that are just twisting my brain up that we all got to talk about. And I want to share with you guys. So let's just jump right into it. So here's what I have with me today. I've got two fantastic people. The first one is our Director of Education, Barbara Pierce. Barbara, how are you this morning?
I am doing well, Michael. Thank you so much for having us today. How are you doing?
Oh man, I'm doing awesome. Like I do every day, right? And we are also joined by one of our great coaches, educators, business owner, Leslie Winterrowd. Leslie, how are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Happy to be here.
Well, happy to have you here.
As always.
So when it comes to today, here's where this came about for all those listening in. I will tell you right now, this is just one of those conversations that we were having in natural dialogue. And I'm like, we got to record this because this is so good. This has got to be a podcast. And so to kind of bring you guys, the listeners, up to speed, here was the dialogue. And the dialogue's been all around leadership, and more than leadership, not in the traditional sense. We're talking about how do we inspire and how do we build stronger teams and community, and how do we lead with heart, and how do we lead with passion and emotion, and just all these different places we're coming in. And, I think one of the places I want to start is I want to kind of start with you, Leslie, because you just said it again, before I hit the record button. You made a comment that just really sprung something in my brain that was like, you made the comment like, if you don't look good, we don't look good. And we were kind of framing that within leadership. Talk to me a little bit more about, just kind of share where your mind is when you made that statement.
Yeah, well, I think someone asked me the question recently and said, how do I inspire my team? Or how do we get our teams inspired to this or this or that? And, we're wanting the easy, like, here's the 5 bullet points, or, here's the 5 things you got to do, or the 3 things you got to do. And when I really sit back and look at it, when my team is the strongest, it's when I'm the strongest. And so where it came from was, if I don't look good, they don't look good, because it comes from me. Inspiration, and inspiration comes from them. If they don't look good, we don't look good. So it's really, it's going back to that, yes, leadership. If I'm the owner of the company, of course I have this role, but we all have that role, and when we are our best is when we all look good. And that's from the inside, and so that's where that came from. And so, because I don't think there's an easy fix. I don't think there's here's the 5 things you do to inspire your team, or here's the 10 things that are going to get you to the $1 million or 2 million or 10 million, or, there's a lot of systems and structure and thing, but if you don't look good, we don't look good. And I wholeheartedly live that and believe that. And listen, I have had some times where I did not look good. And trust me, my company suffered from it. And so, but I do know when I look good, meaning feel good and know what I'm doing, what I'm driving, where I'm going, I am so much more grounded, so much more present, have better conversations with my team that in turn get reactions better than I had expected. It's this whole like just effective, right, cause and effect.
Right. I think the challenging part is that, we just get tired sometimes. You just get tired, you get kind of feeling, I don't know, I'm about to say the word that I don't want to use. I'm about to say, I don't want to use the word, but I'm about to use it. But sometimes we can feel maybe a little bit beat up. Sometimes we can feel I think it's more just tired, not in the sense that, I guess when I say beat up, I don't mean that we have people coming at us in a negative way. I think it just more comes down to the day-to-day just man, it just throws punches at us. It's, a little bit of this and a little bit of that, whatever those things happen to be, or just the things that need to happen. Especially, I will say, especially if you're out there and you're a service provider and also the leader. I mean, again, just it doesn't mean it. And I guess maybe it's unfair to say that, because I think there's challenges on all sides. But hey, like you just said, it's, if I'm not at my best, my team can't be at their best. And I think that really, that is the core that we have to kind of be aware of, and just kind of going, all right, well, how do I start to do that? And it would be nice if we could just go, oh, if you do A, B, and C, suddenly everything cures itself. Certainly, I guess there are things that you can do, but, yeah, I think that's just the biggest, I think that's the challenge of it, is how do we overcome that, and how do we find our way to be our best every day?
I think, I think one of the most simple things that it's the hardest, easiest thing to start with. And I think, I think when we feel beat up, or we feel tired, or we feel whatever those are, it could be anger, it could be resentment, it can be whatever. You have to write down what it is coming at you and what it's creating for you. And so if it's, oh, my team keeps coming to me about XYZ, or, they didn't get this, or, they don't understand this, or I don't know, whatever the issue is, just start to write it down. Like, have an entire journal or notebook that's just, here's all the things coming at me. And, and if you want to mix it all up, it can be home, it can be work, it can be business, it can be whatever, but what are all the things coming at me? And then from there, why is this creating stress? What's the root behind this? And what you're going to start to see is so many of these things have one thing in common. With your team, it might be, we've got communication breakdowns, or it might be, our financial health is what's creating this, or I don't know. Everyone's going to be so different, even though we're so seemingly alike. But you have to identify that. And then from there, I do believe in, okay, where am I going, and how am I going to take this to the other side? And it goes back, we did a class at conference, but the miracle morning and those savers in the morning, it's what is my vision? It's sit in silence and be where you are. And then it's affirmations. I am growing a successful, sustainable company. I am growing a strong, solid team. I am surrounded by the right team to get me to where I want to be, or whatever those affirmations are. Again, they're different for everybody, but it's that grounded in, here's where I am, here's what I'm doing, here's what I'm going, living with gratitude, but it's the reading, and then feeding yourself the right information, constantly reading, studying, talking like we're talking this morning. You guys inspire me all the time. And it's just being around like-minded people that keep you and your head in a space that, because it can get dark quick. We all know that,
Right.
it's the one rock starts to drop, and there's the avalanche.
Right.
Leslie, I want to touch on something that you actually said earlier when we were talking before the podcast about being grounded, being present. You just, reiterated that point a moment ago. And I think a lot of times as leaders, that saying, we create our own weather. We take so much on ourselves, and we stretch ourselves so thin, and we spin like little Tasmanian devils. I've got to complete this task, but that one's not done, and this person needs attention, and we just spin out sometimes. And I think we create our own weather. We put so much on ourselves, and we could chase another rabbit trail about, working really hard to create leaders and engage our teams so that we could delegate. But let's just stop for a moment and go back to what you said. I remember growing up, when my kids were growing up, and my mother was always there, and was always, there to take the burden off of us and to help out. And I was talking to her one time about, how I found her so inspiring in that, what she did for all of us. And she said, I don't do anything but stand still for you. And wouldn't it be nice if everybody had someone to stand still for them? Meaning she just stood still for us and was that calm in the storm. And sometimes I think as leaders, we create our own weather, we get frantic, that energy pours onto the team.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe how about as leaders, we give ourselves a moment to just cut ourselves a break and to practice a little bit of self-care and to realize that we can't do everything. And as we're growing a team, we don't have to. We'll get to the point where we can, some of the things that is on our plate, we can move. And for a moment, why don't we as leaders just give ourselves permission to stand still for our company, to just be there, be present, stop beating ourselves up over the things that we haven't got done or the things that we still need to do, and just listen to the rhythm of our company for a moment and what it needs from us, and be grounded and present. And when you show up, Leslie, I really have taken to heart what you said about that, the savers, and in the morning, resetting your intention for the day and your purpose, and really, taking a moment to pay attention to yourself, and then bringing that calmer energy into the company so that when things explode, you don't become part of the explosion, you become part of the calm and the aftermath. And I think that, maybe we should practice standing still just for a moment. Give it a week, see what happens.
Absolutely. I was going to say, this is, jumping, some things are jumping around in my brain, listening to you guys and, just kind of processing. This is one of those things tagging into and kind of extending, at least where my brain is, what you just shared, Barbara. And again, Leslie, you started triggering it as well, is I kind of wonder when it became like something that, when did the rule become that if you're a leader, you can't be just genuine? Like, I'm not sure where who made that rule. And I think what I mean by that is, I think so many times we feel like we have to be this superhero, maybe.
Yes.
You know what I mean? We got to be above the fray, and we got to be stronger than it all, and blah, 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 blah. We got to have the answers and all of this. That the biggest thing is, and as I've done, just some reading and some research and things like that, and especially, it's something that if you happen to be at our conference, something I shared from the main stage and digging into it, just that whole idea of being someone that is genuine is the greatest gift that you can give to everyone around you. Being, and it came out of Brene Brown talked about, the vulnerability, and this kind of all ties in, being able to be vulnerable, just meaning being your authentic self. And so that's where that genuine word for me came from as I'm thinking about this, but just being able to be your authentic self and who you are is so powerful, because that's heart. That shows heart. And so I think sometimes we get into this mindset of that we can't be that, that we have to be something different. This cornerstone, that piece that holds it all together, kind of a thing. I even change my tone of my voice when I talk about it. You know what I mean? Like, oh, it's got to be strong, right? But that's not always who we are, and that's okay, because I think that's where, when we see people, or I think this naturally, I'm going to kind of spin into this idea of, because my brain's twisting now, I think that does that not naturally maybe build team organically? Because what is the purpose of a team? A purpose of a team is that you have other people around that you support you when you need the support. And so the only way people can support you is when they see you need it. So if it's always you come in with the look of, I got it all handled, everyone knows you don't, because no one does in their life. No one does. And so it's okay to be genuine and be vulnerable, because I think that might naturally start growing team around you, because their purpose is, let me pick you up when you're not your best. And that actually is part of the reason why clicking this and going from our conversation, like, we got to get this into a podcast, because that's, I think, a lot of times what you guys especially do for me, and I think what we do for each other, is just being able to be there when Michael's not at his peak. Is the fact that the cool thing about it is I get to have great conversations like with the two of you, and you help me and support me in ways, and but if I never showed that, you'd never be able to recognize it. And it might create I'm hoping the side benefit is it creates, I feel more part of this. I don't know. I'm going to shut up because I feel like I'm rambling at this point. Maybe that's triggering something for someone else.
No, it's triggering something for me, because here's you completely just nailed what I wish someone would have told me as my 18-year-old self. Because it's always, had I known then what I know now. But fortunately, I learned this in my 40s where I am now. I wish I would have learned this in my 20s. But I've been working for I've been at Gold Waves for 23, 24 years now. And, I came in as a fixer, and I have been a fixer for 23 years. And I was a fixer until I couldn't fix. And, this all falls into pandemic. And, I had some personal things moving and things that went on, but it broke me. But my team was so used to me fixing, like, it wouldn't matter what it was. It could be the toilet, and it could be, we've got 18 people that showed up and we have no room on the books, and I would figure out where to get them all in. It didn't matter what the issue was. Leslie fixed everything. And so not only did I put myself on that, I can do it, so did they. And so when I fell several years ago and couldn't fix and was not good, it was like, oh, I don't know what to do with that over there. And I became like, just, whoa. And so, through this journey, it's given me tools to go, I don't have to fix everything, and I don't want to fix everything. But, conversations now with the team, it's not, we have to be perfect, or we have to do it right, or we have to make sure this and this and this get done. It's like, do what you think's best, lead with your values, or our values. We're all going in the same direction. I trust you. You trust me. Not all of us have the answer. And let's pick each other up along the way. It's kind of like is it leapfrog? And you jump over and then you go to the back of the line. It's just
Right. Yeah.
Or whatever the game is. It's just like, okay, lean on whoever's strong enough to do it. And it works better. But you're right. It's just being your authentic self and not someone that you're not. Not that I was never like fake or, but I was trying to be everything for everyone, not only from a fix-it standpoint, but taking on everyone's emotion. You talk about 23 years of taking on everything that everybody's going through, and their financial and their family and their da da da. I mean, it'll kill you. And but learning how to deflect that, and learning how to help others, and learning how to help others solve their own. But again, Barbara, like you said, it's being present, and it's listening, and it's meeting them where they are. And just being, I read something this morning because we were having the three of us were having a conversation yesterday, and I was reading something on mindfulness, and something I read, it was about this Buddhist monk, and he was talking about how he goes in the morning and he prays to God, and someone asked him, well, what do you ask for? And he says, nothing, I just listen. And they said, what does God tell you? And he said, nothing. He just listens. And I was like, that's it.
What? Stop doing that to me right now. Like, wait a second. You're twisting me up, man.
Well, listen, you told me yesterday, what's a book I need to read? I'm like, well, I'm going to go find the book. So I've probably read like excerpts from it, but that was what I read this morning. And I was like, oh.
Did you ever pick a book out, by the way?
No, but Janine Letford has helped us. I went ahead and reached out to her too.
Awesome.
Michael, I want to, going back to that vulnerable, and Leslie, I'm going to think about that for days. That's going to bounce around in my head, by the way. But you said a word when you were talking that I was thinking when Michael was talking about the vulnerability and being vulnerable as a leader. And I think it's the word that really stuck with me was trust, because I think sometimes in leadership, we get in our head that the only way to build trust is to always be right and make the perfect decisions and never be wrong. And And if I'm wrong, or if I made a wrong decision, then that's it. My whole foundation crumbles and nobody's gonna, believe in me as a leader anymore. And I think that's where we may be getting it wrong sometimes, because people can see through that. When you make a bad decision and then pretend like it was a good one, people see through that and they know that was a bad decision and you're acting like it was a good one. And that breaks trust. And, Michael, you said it a long time ago that trust is that echo chamber. I trust you, you trust me. But when you break that cycle, it takes a long time to rebuild that machine. And I think as leaders, our fear of being vulnerable does so much more damage than we think it's doing. We think the damage is, oh, I made a wrong decision, or I said something wrong, or but that's not true. The damage is pretending like it was a right one, because they can see through it. And that vulnerability is actually a trust builder, that it's sneaky in the way that it does it. And to be able to say to your team, and going back, Leslie, I pick you up, you pick me up, to be able to go back and say, hey, that decision was not my best, and here's why. And here's how I think we can fix that moving forward and install a better plan, because it's never too late to install a better plan. I think that's where the team really starts to strengthen. And maybe even ask them, what would you have done differently? What do you think we could have done to change that? That vulnerability comes out. And then going back to what you just said, now you got to listen to them. You got to really hear them when you ask that question. What can we do as a team to get stronger moving forward? And how can I lean on you? You got to be willing to actually lean on them and listen to them. And that's hard too, sometimes, putting that down. Like you said, for 20 something years, I was the fixer. How do you put that down and become part of the team? And everybody is now the fixer. That's difficult.
I think we take for granted the idea that listening is easy. Yeah, I think that's something, as I kind of process that, again, you twisted me all up with that whole monk statement analogy thing there, story. It's like, it's got my brain all like, what? But I think that, that is, there is so much we can learn just from that alone. But thinking about, like, I have to admit, I'm not sure the last time I actually thought about, am I really a good listener? And sometimes we hear that out there. Sometimes that's kind of a little buzz phrase that you're like, be a good listener. But when it really comes down to it, you really put it to the test and you say, what does it really look like to genuinely just listen? That it's a whole different game. And, because that takes discipline. I think there's a real discipline to that, that many of us, I would count myself as one when I say this, have not developed, or not developed nearly well enough, as far as that goes. So, I mean, this is all just, again, that's why I love this conversation, is just, as we sit here and we think to ourselves, the idea of, this whole dialogue started around leadership, and maybe the idea of being a better leader, being a strengthening leader, building a better, however you kind of started, however we came into this, again, if we don't look good, if I don't look good, the team doesn't look good, just that whole thing that you put out there, Leslie, is we got to be our best to be able to, to give back. And how do we do that? I think it is these things, like, things that do lead to it. It's not so much the 5 things that you got to do, but if we do start to just kind of process a little bit and start to say, all right, what if I became a better listener? What if I became more my authentic self? That, again, whether you want to call that genuine, whether you call that attached to that vulnerability, awesome. Whether it just becomes like how I begin my day, with a different level of intent, in some way, shape, or form. How did these things help me? I think we can even look back. It's like almost like this is almost, again, where we are now is there is absolutely, I think, an evolution. I mean, business is always an evolution. Leadership's always an evolution. I think there probably was, certainly. I know there was, because that's why we kind of have a lot of the hangups that we all have in our brains, that we got to be this type of person. We got to be this, we got to be this, we got to have answers and all this. Because I'm sure there was absolutely a time in business and in leadership where that's what really counts. And yes, there are times where we have to be a leader that says, you know what, we have to have it. Actually, it was said best. Here's something else that really hit me this morning. Currently, right now, as we're talking about this, we have a class going on in our training center, and so I was in there this morning, and I was asking them, "Hey, give me some of your ahas." And one of the people said, "One of my ahas was I had to learn how to put some backbone with my wishbone." And I was like, that's really good. I am so stealing that. And I've stole it now a mere 60 minutes later after I heard it. But what I thought about that was that is, again, as leaders, there are times where again, that backbone or these things come in where we have to be strength. We have to have strength because it fits who we are and the convictions that we have, because we're genuine, vulnerable people that, you know what I mean? Because of all these other things, I think this strengthens our backbones. I think this strengthens us so that we can attach that to our wishbone, because as leaders, we also have to have that visionary piece, that where we go in piece, that dream it out there piece, and not be afraid to do that either. So just putting it down, just laying stuff down for us, I guess.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And again, I mean, everything you're saying leads back to if you don't look good or you don't feel good, they don't look good or whatever. You don't, the feeling of having to get your backbone out or it goes away when you start to ground yourself daily and know where you're going, what you're doing, and who you are, and visual. You know, I, I think vision, purpose, mission has been given a bad rap, because I remember even back in the 80s, in the early 90s, and it's write your mission statement, write your vision, and it was confusing. And then someone would have this really broad, big sentence with all these big words. And I was like, oh, mine's never going to compete with that. You got so caught up in what it looked like to other people that you were never even really writing a true, authentic statement for yourself. At least I wasn't. And so, because you were trying to impress everybody else in the classroom or whatever. And, now being so grounded and knowing what you're growing and what you're building and who you are and how you want to show up. And I'm not even just talking about for your team. I mean, how I want to show up for my children, how I want to show up for my husband, how I want to show up for my friends. I mean, it's just, if you don't look good, none of that is as healthy as it could be. And it all comes back to that. And so here's what I'll say too, because I know this started with, how do we drill down more into to the team level? And as I'm just starting to think about this, once you get yourself healthy, and health means a whole lot of things, but when I'm talking about health right now, I'm talking about vision, purpose, mission, who I am. Do I feel good inside, mentally, all the things? Then I do feel like it's our job as leaders to grow our team. And yes, technical skills, yes, show them the numbers. Yeah, there's all the things, but I'm talking about what we're talking about. It is our responsibility to grow these younger generations that come to work for us and invest in them. And I have huge mentors in my life, and this is the piece that they gave me in my life, was the personal growth. It was the looking inside to find the answers. It was, not competing with the Joneses. It was, I am my own competition, that kind of thing. And, it's Edwin Neal is one of them. And I feel like he was one of the industry first to really start talking values and talking core values and talking vision and mission, and and really and strengthening us. Our annual meetings at Neal Corporation were all personal growth. We would have clowns come in and talk about 6-inch floaters and and healthy bowels and what that meant for your mental. I mean, it it was hilarious. But I didn't even know where I was at the time. And now looking back, I'm just like, man, he was onto something. And so for me, I feel very responsible for providing that for my team, because I know when the personal growth is there and they're becoming better, just bettering themselves, all that other stuff that we teach, the numbers, the scoreboards, the cash flow, add on the teamwork, all that comes.
Right.
Because they love where they are and they love where they work. So that's how you drill it down.
Right.
Just to jog your memory, we started on this path because we were talking about making our workplace inspiring. How do you create an inspiring environment in the workplace? And of course we, went straight to leadership, and Leslie said, it is inspiring when the leader is grounded and present. But to what you were saying, growing a team, if you want to be, as an inspiring leader, if you think about inspiring, I think a lot of times in our minds, we turned it into, I have to give a Braveheart speech every day and always be on. And this kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier. I can never make a mistake. I can't be vulnerable. I got to go in, swords drawn, Braveheart speech, seize the day, carpe diem. And what I've, was thinking about when you were talking is going back to my mom saying, stand still. If we're trying to create an inspiring place to work, if we're trying to grow a team, that means that we aren't the ones always giving the Braveheart speech. If we want the team to be inspired, we want them to show their emotion and their enthusiasm. And as leaders, sometimes I think we can take up all of the space in the room, trying to be the one who's banging that drum of the vision, the values, the mission, the one who's being the inspirational person in the room. And if we are really living our values in our company and our team, we've worked hard to inspire our team to believe in that and feel that, then we've got to allow them to sometimes give the Braveheart speech and get out of the way. And that goes back to that vulnerability in a company that is trying to grow a team. You've got to have the strength as a leader to sometimes not be the one leading at that moment, to let somebody else, as you're growing that team, if you want to be an inspiring place to work, you've got to let their enthusiasm have space to move around the room when you have inspired them, when you hit the nail on the head and you got it right. And now they're going to be the one, to take the victory lap and to, give the Braveheart speech and to inspire someone else on the team. I think that's hard a lot of times for us, we feel like we've got to, going back to just stand still, be present and listen. Cause I think a lot of times we go in thinking I've got to carry all of the weight, including being the cheerleader and the inspiring one. And it's, give yourself permission to watch others on your team grow into that leadership in their own right and take up that mantle for you from time to time. And then you're cheering them on and watching them run with it, with your vision, with the values of your company.
Well, how much more inspiring for the team is it when, let's just say you show up to a huddle today and they do their, I do this. I live in Houston. My salon's in Fort Worth. I'm 4 hours away. So when I show up, I'm typically not leading a huddle because I don't even know what they're talking about because I'm not there in the day-to-day stuff. But they'll look at me and, do you have anything to add? And a lot of times I do because I talk a lot. I mean, let's be honest. But how much more, how much do they take away when I just say, I'm just looking around the room and can't believe the amazing team that you guys have built. Like I get emotional talking about it. It's just the Braveheart speech. You can't do it all the time.
Yes.
Do it when you need to. Be proud of what they are building. Because it's amazing. And you don't have to be everything to everybody, but man, acknowledge them. And guess what? You do that, your phone or however you communicate, it's going to blow up and they're going to go, I have an idea. This is what I think I want to do. What do you think about this? I want to go recruit at the schools. Like this seriously happens. And It's like, oh my God, I don't have to do everything. And all I said was, y'all are awesome. Like, why can't we be better at that?
Right. No, I mean, you absolutely, you are hitting it 100%, Leslie, and what you're sharing, Barbara. It's, I'm sitting here as I look at things. I'm going to kind of, because again, I want to be aware of just, I mean, this conversation has been fantastic. And I'm looking at the clock going, holy cow, I'm like, wow, we've already been like 35 minutes on this, and man, there's so much more to talk about. So I want to kind of start to bring this, at least this particular conversation, to a little bit of a close here. And definitely there's so many more things I want to talk about around this after, but we'll make those other podcasts down the road for sure. But here's what here's what I would like maybe all of us to do, because I think we're all in the same mindset of kind of processing just this whole dialogue, and what can we give back, right? What can we give back to the listener and people that are tuning into this. So here's what I'm going to kind of summarize from what's been so powerful for me. We talk about this idea of leadership, and really then in the end, we ended with how that inspires your culture, how that inspires your workplace. Again, we talked about genuine and vulnerable and the way we start our days and showing up our best self, but also just recognizing the fact that we can always be 100%. And that's okay, because that actually is good, because showing our genuine self is a good thing. But as we end with this idea of, again, going back to inspiring, Leslie, you really kind of said this, and I just want to reemphasize it for anyone that might have missed it with all the good stuff that's being shared. Everything we're talking about, you're exactly right. If we want to talk about, let's get results and let's get numbers and let's get this, listen, we do these things, those things are going to automatically happen, because you now have people that are invested in what they're doing at a whole different level. It's why they come to work. They understand the purpose of why they come to work. All right. We do X, Y, and Z, and we understand that game. But you want to change that game, really show up, and all these things that we talked about wasn't anything about what system this and what this, that. People are going to be inspired to follow that and to do their work at their highest level when we show up like we've been talking about. That's the inspiration. And I'll kind of sum it up this way and then kind of pass the baton. Again, this kind of builds out of, again, I'm going to harken back to just what I was able to share again at the keynote from the conference, was the things we're talking about. These build the experiences that people have with us, and experiences then foster beliefs. And so beliefs then drive and create action. And so we often think about actions, and that's the action that we do that makes a result, because the highest part of that pyramid is, there are four stages in that pyramid. The top of that pyramid is the result. Right below that is the action. And we tend to focus ourselves there on that action that could give us a result. But everything we talked about here, this inspiration and things like that, the result of this creates experiences which strengthen beliefs, man. And that is where long-term, you want to inspire a team, and you want to create a team that wants to stay a part of your culture. And you want to create empowered leaders. And I'm going to touch on what you said, Leslie. Be a mentor in this way and show them what an empowered leader looks like. And sometimes an empowered leader just listens. Simple as that. Just listens. So, baton passed. Who wants to pick it up from here to kind of summarize anything that you got in your brain?
Leslie, I saw your face.
Well, I summarize.
For those that don't not see the video of this, we're talking on Zoom. Leslie's just there, and if you know Leslie, like, her brain is like, I am processing so many cool things in my head right now that my brain is overwhelmed and I'm flooding. So actually, all I'm doing now is I'm stalling a little bit. I'm giving Leslie a time to kind of think, as far as that goes. So.
Well, so I don't know when this is going to go out to anybody, but I'm going to talk about where we are right now. And right now we are in the month of November, and we are 3 weeks out from Thanksgiving, and we are going into the busiest time of year for most of our companies. And it's the perfect time to get ourselves healthy and to just, even if you don't do all the things of reading and scribing and visioning and affirmations and all the things, start your day with gratitude, and look at what you do have, and be thankful for all the things you do have. And tell your team and show up in that gratitude, thankful, just genuine, authentic, vulnerable self. And if you cry because you're so happy, like, listen, I do it all the time. It's okay. But over these next 2 months, like, I'm not saying you could schedule one-on-ones out, but just for an action item of something to do. And this is anytime you're listening to it, it just happens to be Thanksgiving-ish time right now. Ask your team what they want. What are your goals? I know we talk about this a lot, but ask them again, ask them all the time, and start connecting that. And I think what you'll find is, as you yourself get grounded and figure out what's in your way, or what fear is standing in your way, or where you need to become brave or have more courage or whatever around certain things, you're going to see this in every single conversation you have. And you're going to start to be able to help everyone around you. And I'm talking about your team, but this could be your brother, it could be your neighbor, it could be your husband, it could be whoever. But start to help them process how to get out of their own way, and reach their goals. And I do firmly know that we are better together, and that team is how we get everything we want, whether that team is your family, that team is your team in strategies, that team is your company, that team is your neighborhood network, whatever that is. But together we are better together. But we got to know where each one of us fit in and how we all get there together. So spend some time being grateful, but spend some time truly being present and listening to what your team wants. Where are they going? Where do they want to go on vacation next year? Do you know?
Right. Good stuff.
For me, the last thing that I would want to add is leadership is communication. That's all it is. And everything that you do speaks, and they're listening to everything that you say, whether it's, talking to them, whether it's not talking to them, because saying nothing is saying something, whether it's the body language that you use. And I do think we make our own weather. I think when we come in a negative headspace, and I love, Leslie, what you've been talking about, starting your day on that positive note, taking care and nurturing yourself so that you can bring your best self into the company. Because when you don't, they feel that too, and they listen to that too, and they hear that too. And, I think that authenticity, going back to what you said, Michael, it's okay to come in a negative headspace, but it's what you do with that matters. Do you lean on your team and allow them in and allow them to help make it better so that you can get quickly through that rain shower and onto the sunshine as fast as possible, and with all of them in tow? Everything we do speaks to our team. And take a look around. Do you know your team? Are you taking a moment to forget writing your Braveheart speech and ask them where they're going on vacation? Ask them how they're doing. Are you paying attention to their body language? Have they come in a little bit down, and are you providing that support for them? Leadership is all about communication and how we communicate, whether you're communicating your values, whether you're communicating your vision, whatever it is that you need the team to know. Are you saying that to them? And then are you listening in return? Listening is a valuable part of communication. And so I would leave you with this. Look at your own personal communication skills. What weather are you bringing, and how can you change that weather to a bright, sunny day every single day? And I know that there's going to be that little bit of rain from time to time, but are you using, your team as part of that system to move you quickly into that sunny spot again, so that it doesn't linger? Just watch your communication skills, because that is, and in a nutshell, that's what leadership is.
Love it. This has been awesome. Love talking with you guys, as I always do. Would definitely have to do this again. And I think I say that at the end of every podcast because I always am inspired. Every time I talk to someone, I'm like, man, we got to have more of those kind of conversations. And we hope that did that for all of you out there that are listening. So again, thank you everyone that tuned in. We will definitely talk to you soon. Have a great day.
Thanks again for listening to the Beauty Business Strategies podcast. If you like this episode, be sure to hit follow, and please share the episode link with anyone who you think could benefit from today's content. To learn more about how strategies can help create more fun, profit, and growth potential for you, your company, and your team, we invite you to schedule a free 60-minute strategy session by clicking the direct link in the description of this episode. There you'll also find links to our wide array of coaching, seminar, and learning opportunities, all of which can be found at strategies.com.